everyone, welcome to Under the Gun. I'm Jon Freidberg, and we are here at the Rio, where the World Series of Poker has been now going on for more than 4 weeks. I think we're now in week 5, which means that there's only a couple more events before it ends, and of course, the coveted main event is next week. I know I'm very excited about that. Many of you are excited about that, and I'm guessing about 9,000 people this year are going to be very excited about that coming up. I got off to a really good start this year. I cashed in my very first event, didn't do so well in the second, cashed again in the third, didn't do well in the fourth, and then bubbled my 5th event. And then after that, I kind of went cold for a while. Started to get some better opportunities since then, but I still haven't had any more cashes. So I think I've now played in about 10 or 11 events. I've had 2 cashes. Overall, net, I'm probably down about 10,000, although I haven't really added up all my tickets yet. I'm not too unhappy with that, but I would like to have some more cashes, and obviously I would love to do well in the main event this year, as would many of us. So I just wanted to say I have to give a very big shout out to the Harrah's organization. I think that they have done an excellent job running the World Series this year. Everything seems to be flowing very smoothly. From the dealers, although there are some problems with the dealers, but given the size and the capacity of what they're running here, can't expect all the dealers to be good, but I think that everything is flowing really smoothly. The registration is good. The dealers are going pretty well. The floor people are making good decisions. The tournament schedule is excellent. The food is awesome. The Poker Kitchen this year is great, so I wanted to give a very big shout out to Harrah's and also to Jack Ethel for doing a great job this year. Now, if you're coming in for the main event and you're not so sure about food options, or if you've already been here and maybe you're getting exhausted on the Rio selections, I wanted to make a couple of recommendations for places that are close by. There's 2 places that I like to go in particular. One is called the Greek American Grill, which is like right by the Rio. If you just go a little bit further west on Flamingo, it's maybe a half mile down the road. And they have some great food there. I often call in on my way to Rio. They have a little drive-through. I pick it up, and then I just drive in to Rio, and I already have my food with me. The other place is called Teriyaki Madness. Now, there's not really one right by the Rio, but it's great food, very healthy. As you can guess by the name, it's kind of like rice bowls and things. There's 4 or 5 around town, but depending on where you're staying, if you see one close by, I can pretty much guarantee it's going to be good food. Again, very healthy and fast, so that's another good option I recommend. My 2 guests for today's show are going to be Faraz Jaka and Zachary Clark. Faraz's online name is The Toilet, and Zach's is Crazy Zachary. Both of them were very successful online players, have both come into the live world, and have both made tremendous splashes with success. One of them, Faraz, I would have to say, is probably quickly gained the reputation of being the craziest player on the circuit. He's played some really crazy hands, which I will ask about, but for the most part I want to talk to them about why the young players are doing so much better in today's game than the older players, and how to transition from online to live, and why these young guns are so successful, and also what their living arrangements are during the World Series, and what it's like to live in a hotel versus a house with a bunch of other online players, and of course find out their perspective on that, as well as a few other tips that they might have to offer. But first, let me cut into my Under the Gun challenge so I can give an update on my 2 challenges of winning $100,000 on UB, and of course winning my seat to the main event on UB.com. Well, I've pretty much been focusing my Under the Gun challenge this month on winning a seat into the main event. For 2 reasons. Number one, I really just haven't had the time to be playing cash games. Secondly, I realized that after putting in a little session of cash games recently, I realized that the difference between cash and tournament play is really kind of screwing with me a little bit. I'm in such a tournament mindset right now that when I was playing cash, it just wasn't really making sense to me. So I literally played about 50 hands and decided that maybe it really wasn't a good idea because A, I don't really have my A cash game on, and B, I don't want to transition into kind of a cash game mindset and then not really be prepared in the World Series. So they're very different games, and I'm fairly new to cash, so I don't want to be transitioning back and forth. So I'm pretty much postponing all my cash game action until the World Series ends, which pretty much is next week, or at least the following week. So that said, I have been making some attempts at winning my seat into the main event on UB. They have a wonderful promotion there, as I keep talking about, where UB is adding $5,000 per player that shows up. If you win your seat on UB and you show up to play in the main event, whether or not you cash, you will still make some money for showing up from UB from the $5,000 per player that they're adding. So it's a great promotion. I personally have been focusing mostly on the step tournaments where you can start out at like $1 or something, which I don't start that low. But you can work your way from step 1 all the way up to 10. And currently I have 2 tickets to step 9 events. I played one step 9 already, and I basically came in 4th place, which meant that I just won another entry into step 9. Plus I had kind of been climbing up the ladder on a different one. So I currently have 2 tickets to step 9 tournaments. I just need to come in 1st or 2nd in one of those, and then win, of course, step 10 so I can get my $12,000 main event package. Hopefully that happens, and I will know for sure next week. So I would have to say next week we'll conclude my Under the Gun challenge of winning a main event seat, and hopefully I will have done just that. So I have my guests here waiting for us, Mr. Faraz Jaka and Crazy Zachary Clark. Let's get them on. Faraz and Zach, glad to have you guys on the show. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
So I had a show on Card Player a couple years ago, 3 years ago now, called Stacking Chips, and I always said that the internet players were going to take over poker, right? And that the older people were going to have no shot eventually. I think we're just about to that point now. And here you guys are. You're 24. You're 25, right?
Yeah.
And the two of you are like a perfect example of the young guns that are taking over poker. Mm-hmm. Your style's very different. Tell myself and everybody what it is that makes these young players so much better or so much more successful than kind of the older people.
I feel like the easiest answer is information spreads on the internet so much faster than anywhere else. So I mean, there's forums online, there's videos, and you're going through like 5 to 10 times as many hands as live players are. So experience and information, I think, are the 2 easiest answers right there.
Yeah, I would agree with him. You know, there's just so many more hands being played, and with that being said, you're going to improve immensely when you're playing so many hands, and you know, when you make mistakes, you're going to make more mistakes, and you're going to learn from those quicker. So yeah, I would say just the amount of hands you're playing is
yeah, and I think it's like a recurring theme in every industry that there's always the younger crowd trying to find newer ways to do things, and the older crowd is a little more hesitant to change their ways, but then there's a few that are. So I think it's, you know, it's that same theme over and over again.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, the younger people are always much more, you know, prone to be innovative, whereas older people, such as myself, can oftentimes, you know, get comfortable in a certain path and want to stick to that. I say older about my age, not me personally.
With that said, I still feel like there's a lot of things that the older people do that some of the younger people don't give respect to, you know? Like as far as playing live and stuff,
Absolutely.
A lot of the younger guys don't have a lot of experience doing that.
And there are plenty of old men that adjust. There's definitely more than a handful of them out there. Yeah. However, in general, they are set. More of them. There's more older people set in their ways because they're already formed their poker game or whatever it may be. But you know, we all know Phil Ivey's the best. And last time I checked, he's over 30. So.
Right. So Faraz, you are like creating a reputation right now for probably becoming the craziest player on the circuit. Now there's a famous hand that maybe you haven't heard about yet, but well, obviously you've heard about it, but I think you 5-bet shoved pre-flop with like a 9-4 or something.
Yeah, in the 25K blodge.
Ran into aces.
Yeah.
And won the hand, obviously.
I wasn't going to do it unless I was going to win, so I mean, come on now.
She did Stone Cold Knit too.
Really? So I mean, what is that? Are you just a total madman, or is there actually some method to the madness?
There is a method to my madness, but I guess the funniest way to describe it is usually when you have a bad image and you're playing crazy, you're supposed to slow down and tighten up, and you know that's like the general strategy. And I mean, what I do is I figure good players expect me to do that, so instead I just step it up a notch. So it kind of creates a bit of a war for me at the table, but it's fun. It keeps it interesting, and people are always guessing.
Do you think she would have folded queens?
I don't want to comment too much on the strategy of the hand, but I mean, I just don't regret my play completely. I mean, a lot of it had to do with like stack sizes on the bubble, and I mean, me and her did play like a whole day before, so there was a little bit of history and whatnot. So yeah.
What about you, Zach? What type of style would you consider yourself to be?
I would say I'm more tight aggressive than anything. I just like to think I adjust to the table as much as I can, but I definitely tend to be more tight aggressive than anything.
Okay. So
not quite as fun to watch as my friend Faraz.
Right. Of course. Before that we started rolling the cameras, I was talking to you guys about how you started, how you acquired your poker knowledge and where you learned from. And you both said that you don't really give too much credit to the forums as far as learning. Why is that exactly?
I mean, there's not a specific reason, just kind of the way it happened. But for me, I mean, when I started in college, like I didn't know anybody who really played professionally or that seriously. So I was playing in dorm games, going to casinos with my buddy Ben LaFew. Next thing you know, we're like 19 years old at college, flying out to the Bellagio on weekends to play cash games. So I got a lot of my experience live, actually, and then I switched to online a little later. So because of that, I feel like I'm kind of a hybrid, and I kind of understand both worlds, and that helps a lot, especially, out here where you're playing with both crowds.
It's definitely two different games.
Yeah.
It's absolutely two different games. The forums, they can definitely help you, and I know many players have found a way to make a living from the forums. However, for me, it just wasn't like that. I don't enjoy posting about my strategy, and I just haven't learned that much from the forums. You don't know who's smart enough. Sometimes, like sometimes these guys are posting, and you could be getting the wrong information.
Yeah, I mean,
if you're
forums are good because they teach you like these great fundamentals, but at the same time, everybody's kind of playing that way, so you can predict that, oh, he's a good player, he must know this, that, and that. But if I didn't learn that way, like no one knows how I'm thinking, and even if my stuff isn't like the best fundamentally, isn't most fundamental sound, it's hard to figure out what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, and that's what makes it difficult,
Yeah. If anything, I've used the forums to see other people's hand histories and how they play, because so many good players post hand histories of their own on the forums, and that can be helpful, I would say.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I rant about a lot on this show is that I really don't understand why these good players love to tell other people, what they're thinking and why on the forum publicly.
Yeah.
It's one thing to talk amongst your friends, but why go onto a training site and get paid $500 to do a video and show the world how you're thinking and how you play, and not only like reveal some of your secrets, although I'm sure most are smart enough not to give all their secret sauce away.
I mean, a lot of it's ego. People do, they want to show that they're right. Like someone says something wrong, they want to be like, oh look, I know this better than you. I seriously think a lot of it's ego, Yeah. I mean, as far as the training sites, that's maybe people just wanting money now and not being patient. It might be something like that.
And these 18-year-olds that are coming up, these 18-year-olds hit 100K scores, and it's new to them, and they become a different person sometimes, and sometimes it's for the worst, and the ego really shows sometimes, and it's hard not to, but you got to try to stay humble as much as you can, and I really feel the same way about it. It's all ego.
Do you think that there's people that post hands on the forums that maybe try to mislead others, either to,
I definitely think it happens. I know you were giving some examples of that earlier. I don't think it's super common, but I think there's a few.
I don't think the best will, because there's a lot of great players. I mean, look at Phil Galfond. He sits there and makes videos for BlueFirePoker.com, great videos. And he's obviously one of the best players in the world. But I would say that the best players that post on forums and stuff, they say it how they want to say it. They don't lie, and they don't tell false statements, but they don't say.
They might leave things out.
They don't say everything.
I feel like, I could be wrong, but I feel like the majority still do reveal a lot more than they should. And I think there's a few that do that, but yeah.
So Zach, you talk about these 18-year-old kids that have these big scores and sort of get over their heads and kind of become not so much humble anymore, so to speak. Your uncle was Chip Reese, and many would say that he was amongst the most humble of all big gamblers in the world. Always very confident, but not too cocky and whatnot. What was it like to have him as a like a role model in your life growing up?
It was priceless. Yeah, I mean, that's really the one word I would describe it as. He didn't teach me too much about the actual games, the poker. He just taught me about, walking that fine line between having a great amount of confidence, which you have to have when you're winning, to be a big winner, and to yet still respect your peers and stay humble, you know, and that's hard to do when you're in that business, especially. I mean, I'm just playing little multi-table tournaments, but he did it the biggest cash games in the world for year in and year out, and he was the best at it. And you know, that's what I took away from Chip the most.
And you were really close to him, right? Didn't you actually live with him for some time?
I've lived with him off and on for years, and yeah, he was just a great role model. You know, he was just one of the most honest people I've ever been around, and his integrity was number one, and that's what he always taught me. So I'm not anywhere near what I want to be, but I can still remember. I remember 50 one-liners that he used to spit out, and they're just the greatest. Whenever he said never or always, it was just like, that's a gold statement, because you just know that, like, you always do that, you never do that, and it wasn't about poker. It wasn't poker stuff. So yeah.
Okay, so you guys are both, well, you're sponsored by Doyles Room, and Faraz, you are now in the competition to win a sponsorship with Doyles Room. Tell us a little bit about how that works.
So basically, it's just your standard TLB contest throughout the WSOP for the live events. And there's 4 of us. It's DJK, Doc Sands, Michael Martin, and myself. So yeah, I mean, it started beginning of the series, and whoever has the most points at the end of the series gets an instant spot, the Brunson 10.
Who do you think was the favorite before it started?
I have no idea. Probably DJK, because he plays a lot of the mixed events too. You know what I'm saying? So he's playing a lot more tourneys than the rest of us, and obviously he's a good player anyways. So
I agree.
Yeah.
He has the edge in the mixed game.
So we don't even play those. Yeah.
Well, we're not quite through with the World Series yet, so we don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But that would be, pretty cool if you won it. And,
sure.
I mean, just for ego purposes, aside from the deal, you're probably going to get a deal anyway. I hate to say it, but anyway, that's great. So one last thing. You guys are both, you live in other cities, but you come to Vegas, and rather than staying here at the Rio or in any hotel, you said that you have rented houses with other players and sort of doing the whole, dorm room type baller setup. What's that like?
Well, I've actually done both. This is my 3rd year doing a house, and 1 year I actually stayed at the Rio. Now the bad part about it for me was, I mean, you don't feel like a real person, like in a casino nonstop. It's nice to have a house, like go grocery shopping, cooking, like all that stuff. So I mean, I think like in the end, if you're just grinding like hardcore, like maybe staying at the Rio might be easier, it might be cheaper, you don't have to worry about a car and whatnot. But as far as like for mental happiness, for me, like definitely a house was way better.
Yeah, if you have the money, I would say definitely get a house outside, or a place like the Palms place. A lot of the poker players are going to Panorama or the Palms place, because that's really convenient, really close. But yeah, I enjoy it a lot. I live with that.
Yeah. And it's fun to have this like a party spot that like your friends could come and visit you and stuff like that. So that's really cool too.
Well, how much are you said that you're staying in like this giant house in this private, country club, golf course type setup. How much are you guys paying?
We paid a nice chunk of change.
I mean, like, what does it cost on average? What should people expect to pay?
You get a little, excuse my language, screwed when you only rent for 2 or 3 months in these big houses, so you definitely pay a premium on those. But
like mine is like there's 5 of us, and for the month and a half we're paying $12K. Last year we paid about 10, so I'd say anywhere in that like 9 to 15 range. Okay. I mean, they have nicer ones that go for a lot more and whatnot too. Yeah, I mean.
But I mean, still, depending on your setup, it's a lot less expensive than a hotel most of the time.
Yeah.
And you have all the amenities of,
Houses
privacy.
Out here are really cheap.
Yeah.
In general, and no one's living out here. Right? I mean, all the houses are empty out here right now, so it's really cheap right now. You can find really nice 4-bedroom houses and get it with 3 other people for very cheap. I mean, I'm from Northern California, so real estate's so expensive. So
you do gotta get a car and taxes and stuff too. So there's a little more to add up to it, but I think it's still cheaper.
It's definitely worth it.
But a lot more fun. What about when 5 people in the house are just sucking during the series, and one
you
is
gotta live
like
with the right people. You can't.
Right.
That's just like poker in
that's
general.
huge.
You surround yourself with the right people, and you can't be living with.
Yeah, I'm definitely really selective with who I want to stay with, and like I'm kind of a clean freak. I like everything real nice, and the kitchen like cleaned every day and stuff like that. So I mean that's hard to do when you're living with 4 or 5 people. So sometimes it's inevitable, but at least it can be better than worse compared to certain people.
It's always nice to have people that you respect in poker as well. That you live with. I don't like talking a bunch of poker, especially during the World Series, but it's always nice to come home if you got a hand or two. You can talk over with your friends that you respect. That's always nice. But sometimes it's not the case. Sometimes you just have to live with friends that are better to live with, because that, in reality, will raise your equity in the World Series.
Or to me, like if I want to go like running at night and go exercise, like I have like one of my buddies, we do that together. Like another buddy, we go and party together. So it's kind of cool to have like a few different people to do certain things with.
Awesome. Well, best of luck, Faraz, in your competition to earn the Doyles Room sponsorship, and Zach, you too.
Thank you.
Best of luck in the World Series. Thanks for coming on the show.
No problem.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Under the Gun. I appreciate you watching the show and hope you continue to tune in on Mondays for new show releases, and of course, anytime you're welcome to come here to Card Player TV and watch any prior show. We're going to leave them up for you indefinitely. Make sure to follow me on Twitter. I'm at Jon Freidberg for your chance to win a free poker lesson by me. And if you don't already have a UB account, you can check out my website for details on that, www.jonfreidberg.com. Have a great week. I'll see you guys next week.